Happy Tuesday. I'm here with a kind of a roundup of some books that have disappointed me lately. Over the last, actually not really lately, like over the last couple months, I've read some books that were kind of disappointing to me, so I wanted to talk about some of those. That doesn't mean that they were really bad books or anything like that. It just means they disappointed me from my expectations that I had of them. Two of them I really did not like, but overall most of them are just a 3-star, which to me in my rating system means is just kind of average, just meh. But two of them I rated 2 stars because there were certain things, certain flaws that really marked it down and made it so I did not enjoy them. And they both are actually pretty hyped up releases, so that's kind of a little bit sad. But all these books are books that you've probably heard about here on BookTube. They're not any that are super uncommon or unheard of. So, but let's go ahead and get straight on into the video. So the first book that I wanted to talk about was American Panda, and I'll put a little picture up here for you guys, by Gloria Chow. And I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars, so to me, like I said, that's just kind of meh. This book is about a girl who is being raised by, she's a second generation American citizen, so her parents immigrated from Taiwan, and so she has been raised here in America, and she is being expected to be a doctor, but she's actually kind of a germaphobe, and she does not want to be a doctor, and she's going into college. And so that's kind of what the book is about. And I was really excited about this book because I love Asian cultures. I love reading about Asian culture. And I was really hoping to get to know a little bit more about the Taiwanese culture. And that's something that I really did like about this book. I thought it did. I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and her culture and her relationship with her parents and how their experience has really shaped them as people and as parents. I thought that was really interesting and things like that. But the things that I didn't like about this book, which made it so disappointing to me, was that I did not like the romance at all. I really wish this book would have just stuck to being about her family relationship and about restoring relationships within the family, because there's some strain within it. That was just a major thing to me, was that I just felt it was so unnecessary to have a romance in it, and I would have much preferred it just be about their familial relationship. Another thing that I didn't like about this book was that all of the conversation felt very written. It did not flow naturally. It didn't sound like the way somebody would speak. It just sounded kind of overwritten. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but when I was reading it, that's just what I noted, was this conversation does not seem natural at all. It felt like somebody was writing it, so that kind of pulled you out of the story, and it didn't really make it very believable. The other thing that I didn't really like about this book was that there was so much going on, so many little subplots all over the place, and none of them were really able to get the full development and attention I think that each plot needed and each plot deserved, because there was so much different subplots happening all over the place. And so I really thought that this book could use a little bit of extra editing and kind of pare it down a little bit and really streamline it, because it was just a little bit too all over the place. Okay, so the next book that I want to talk about is Red Rising by Leigh Bardugo. So this is the 3rd book in the Shadow and Bone series, and this was just very disappointing to me in a lot of ways. I really enjoyed the first 2 Shadow and Bone books, especially the first one I really loved. Second one I gave 4 stars, this one I gave 3 stars. So as the series went on, it kind of downgraded for me. But there's a lot of things that I did not like in this book. I didn't like the whole plot with Nikolai. If you've read this book, you know what happens, and I just didn't like where that went. I also thought that the ending was so very weak, and it could have been so much better and so much more impactful if it had gone one way or another. I feel it almost was she took the easy way out, and I wish that there would have been more consequence and things like that when everything just kind of tidied up in a nice little bow, and I didn't really enjoy that at all. I also felt this book was really slow and weird pacing, and it just lost some of that magic the first 2 books had. I just did not think this one lived up to the first 2, but I am still excited to read King of Scars, but just this one, it kind of let me down a bit. Okay, so now onto some books that I actually didn't like. The first one being Enchante by Gita Trelease. And this is a book that's set in the French Revolution, and it's about a girl who can like transform metal into like different things. So she could like take a little safety pin or something like that and transform it into like a coin. So that's how their family is surviving throughout this French Revolution. And then she basically figures out that her magic is a lot more powerful than she thought, and she's able to transform herself and sneak into Versailles. And I was so excited about this book because I love like France, I love everything about it, and so I was really excited to go into this one. And while it did deliver on like the French Revolution front, that really like was a good part of the story. I felt like it had nothing else going on. The whole story was just following her gambling to try to get more money, and there was really no other plot points. It was just basically 500 pages of her sneaking away to go to Versailles to gamble, and I just didn't enjoy that. I don't understand the whole thing with the hot air balloon either. That was like part of this book, and it did not match with anything else going on in the book, and I did not enjoy that either. So this book got, unfortunately, a 2-star for me. Another book that was disappointing to me was 96 Words for Love by Rachel Roy and Ava Dash. Rachel Roy is actually Becky with the good hair from the Beyonce song, which I did not know until after I read this book, but there was just not a lot going on with this book. I gave this one 2 stars as well. Things that I really liked about this book was the Indian culture, and I really liked the main character's like struggles, kind of like she is a very much of an over planner, and she like has to have everything lined out, and that's kind of how I am too, so I kind of related to her in that aspect. But there were some things that I just did not like at all about this book. First off, it kind of felt like the main character was like had a spotlight on her throughout the book, so there is just like the world kind of revolved around her. Like none of the side characters really were developed or anything. It was just kind of like they were there to help her be like the shining star of the book, and I did not like that. And also like every time somebody would be going through like this big life problem, and she would just be like, I know, offer the perfect advice, and it would be like ding, like light bulb, like that's exactly what I needed to hear. And it was like every time she offered any advice, it was like she's like the golden child. I don't know. And the other thing I didn't like is that she is like so snobby when it comes to her music taste in this book. Like she's like, I'm way better than my cousin because I listen to Arcade Fire and she listens to Demi Lovato, so she does not have as good music taste as me. And I just really didn't like that. But I did not enjoy this book, and I would not recommend it. If you're looking for a good book that features Indian culture, I would recommend When Dimple Met Rishi, because I really liked that one. Okay, so now back into books that I just thought were like fine. That being Red Rising, The Sons of Ares Volume 1. This is a graphic novel prequel series about the Sons of Ares set in the Red Rising world. And I gave this one an unfortunate and very sad 3 stars. I just thought this was so mediocre. So far, every book in the Red Rising series have been a 5 out of 5 star for me. Like, I'm obsessed with all of them. So I was really sad that this one was only a 3 star. And I know that's not like a terrible rating. And I think this one is just perfectly average. If you're a Red Rising fan, I would recommend picking this one up. The thing I did not like about this was that this whole story, it's a graphic novel. This whole story is just what we learned in Red Rising. There's nothing new brought to the table. It's all stories that we have heard about the founding of the Sons of Ares. So I wished that we would have gotten some more information and like some new storyline to go with it. And I also didn't particularly love the art. So because of those 2 things, it was just like average for me. Like, of course I love the storyline of the Sons of Ares and I love what we got in Red Rising, but this was just a disappointment to me because I was wanting it to be more and not just like a graphic novel version of something that we had already known. So that's why I did not particularly enjoy this one, but it still is fine. If you like Red Rising, I definitely would still pick this one up just because it's part of the Red Rising world. I don't know. And the last book is The Gilded Wolves by Roshani Chokshi. I am sorry to everyone out there who has been loving this book, but I really did not like it. I gave it 2 stars, which to me is like, it's kind of bad. So there was a lot of things I didn't like about this book. First off being that it's supposed to be set in 1800s Paris, but I constantly had to be reminding myself that it was 1800s Paris because it seriously could have been set in 2004 in Washington, D.C. for all I knew. Like, there wasn't really anything explicitly Parisian about it. It didn't like feel like Paris. The only times I would even be reminded that this was supposed to be historical fiction was when they would have a carriage come pick them up with like horses, and I'd be like, what? And then I would be like, oh yeah, this is supposed to be historical fiction. So that was kind of weird. Like, I was expecting a really fun, lush experience of reading in 1800s Paris, and it was just lacking in that. Another thing I didn't enjoy about this book was I felt like the plot was very unnecessarily complicated. It felt like Roshani Chokshi had written just a very linear heist plot line, and they're like, this is too easy, we need to spice this up. So then she added in all these like offshoot things that didn't really contribute to the overall book, and that just made it unnecessarily complicated. I didn't like enjoy that at all. I felt like it should have been pared down quite a bit, and it was kind of unnecessary. I think that heists are like one of the hardest things for an author to write, I'm sure, because all these threads have to be interwoven together, and I felt like just at the end, like a lot of things that happened were just unnecessary. As far as the characters goes in this book, if you like if you wrote down all their descriptions on a page, they all would be very unique, and I really was looking forward to that going into this as well, but it seemed like all their voices were just kind of ran together. So this is being told in a bunch of different perspectives, but it really all felt like just the same perspective, so I don't understand why it was really necessary. I think they should have just had the same perspective go throughout, and it would have been easier to develop the characters in that way and have their own different voices. Another weird thing to me about this book was it almost felt like it was middle grade. The way the characters acted and behaved was like very childish, but they were all between like 17, 16, 18 and older, but they all kind of behaved in like a very juvenile way. And except for the main character, Severin. The main character Severin, I actually did enjoy his like character, and I also thought Zofia didn't have the same thing going on, but I felt like all the other characters were kind of juvenile, and I just didn't like that. There also was a lot of backstory being told to us rather than shown, which always is something that I like, is a pet peeve of mine in a book. So a lot of telling stories of things that happened in the past, which is just like not a good way for me to enjoy a book. Okay, and then my very last thing that I didn't like about this book was that it was way too fast moving. This is way too short of a book for the story that this is supposed to be. Nothing ever felt impactful because it was just so rushed through. So I definitely did not like this book. I gave it 2 stars, and unfortunately I wouldn't recommend it. Of course, none of these books are like the worst book that I've ever read or anything like that, but if you liked it, I'm happy that you enjoyed it. I hope that you were able to find something that you liked in these books, but for me, they were just disappointments to what I was expecting or what I was wanting, and they just weren't overall enjoyable for me. But if you've read any of these books and didn't like them or have like a different opinion than me, make sure to let me know in the comment below, because I really find it interesting to know like which things, like there could be something that I really didn't like in a book, but you could really enjoy it. So I'd love to hear about that, as well as if you've read anything recently that you didn't like, let me know too, because I always like to take in other people's opinions and stuff. So, but I will see you guys in my next video. Make sure to subscribe to my channel down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!